Hi everyone, and thank you for coming back for our latest video. My name is Lily, and I'm here to talk about and replicate today's topic, which is based around the inner child. Last month, all 4 of our videos covered some of the psychological theories from some of the greatest therapists ever to exist. But for the next 4 weeks we're going to focus our attention more towards the child psychology sector, which we will be starting off with telling you everything that you need to know about the inner child, what the inner child is, and how you can connect with yours. Let's start off by talking about where the theory of the inner child originated from, which was from none other than the great Carl Jung. This great psychologist is most commonly considered the first to have coined the term inner child. The divine child archetype is one among many defined by Jung. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology. He was a prolific author, illustrator, and correspondent. He was a complex and controversial character, probably best known through his autobiography, which talks about his views on memories, dreams, and reflections. Jung proposed and developed the concepts of the extrovert and the introverted personality, archetypes, and the collective unconscious. His work has been influential in psychiatry and in the study of religion, literature, and related fields. The renowned psychology expert who founded many theories about personality and identity originated the term, the inner child, which I'll now start to talk about in more detail. But before I begin, I'd like to ask you all that if you haven't already done so, then please remember to hit the subscribe button to help our channel to grow. The term inner child is often used to describe the connection you have within yourself to your child's self and your childhood memories. At times, you might find that certain behaviors or emotions mimic those you experienced as a child, causing you distress as you try to navigate an adult world. Inner child therapy allows adult people to address past wounds by understanding the needs they had as a child and how they can provide that to themselves as an adult. This type of therapy often involves acceptance, self-love, and self-compassion on the path to inner child healing. Through guidance from a mental health professional, you can start an open dialogue with your inner child and how that inner child feels to connect with your past. Not everyone may feel in touch with their inner child. However, their childhood self may come out in behaviors, emotional reactions, or communication styles during times of extreme emotion. These behaviors might look like trying to receive reassurance from a partner, crying from overwhelm, or having the urge to yell when you have a bad day. An inner child may also show themselves positively through playful behaviors, joking, adventurousness, impulsivity, creativity, and imagination. Often, when people connect with their inner child, they might do so without meaning to. It is also common to explore inner child therapy due to a traumatic childhood event. The concept of an inner child often stems from internal family systems therapy, which posits that all adults have an inner world or system of parts that make up who they are, including safeguarded adult parts and younger child parts. These parts are facets of a personality and are not to be confused with dissociative identity disorder. They are not multiple personalities. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, your kid within is part of your personality that still reacts and feels like a child. Many adults experience these inner child patterns, and it may not only be those who have experienced a traumatic childhood event that benefit from inner child work. Past experiences such as deflection, comments made by your family or classmates, and feeling misunderstood as a kid are topics you can discuss through inner child work that may not be traumatic but can still impact you. Inner child work is important and very powerful because it can promote feelings of autonomy and competence. If you grew up in a controlling or abusive environment, for example, you might feel stuck at a certain age and unable to make your own decisions, which you can overcome. Plus, you'll likely feel more comfortable expressing both positive and negative emotions. But above all else, the inner child holds on to trauma and past traumatic events that have been experienced during childhood. Trauma carried by your inner child can create intimacy and other problems in your adult life. And hiding trauma from childhood doesn't make the pain evaporate. Instead, it often surfaces in your adult life, showing up as distress in personal relationships or difficulty meeting your own needs. But the good news is that not only am I going to teach you how to reconnect with your inner child, but I'm also going to teach you how to heal them from past traumatic events. Before I begin to talk to you about how you can reconnect with your inner child, I do need to go through a couple of disclaimers. While it isn't necessarily unsafe to practice this technique by yourself, it is highly advised that you should use a qualified expert such as a registered hypnotherapist to lead you through the experience. A hypnotherapist will use a method known as guided imagery and will also likely use a form of hypnosis called regression hypnosis. Guided imagery is essentially a form of very deep meditation, which involves a therapist asking you to close your eyes, while he verbally describes a scenery for you to imagine in your mind. The tricky part is when it comes to the point of regression hypnosis being used. This is when your therapist will invite you to mentally regress backwards into your younger life until you have reached a traumatic event that you experienced as a child. These memories can be incredibly distressing, and in some cases you might start discovering repressed memories which you forgot about. A qualified hypnotherapist is trained to deal with situations such as these, and will know exactly what to do to bring you back to consciousness in a safe way, and will also make sure that you're mentally stable and safe before ending the session. If you would still like to practice the inner child techniques by yourself, then the least you should do is spend a few months practicing meditation beforehand so that you know how to safely bring yourself back to consciousness if you ever need to. We'll now move on to talk about exactly how you can connect with your inner child. There are 5 ways to discover, connect with, and heal your inner child. The first is to listen to yourself with compassion. If you've ever had a friend or loved one talk with you about self-doubt or a distressing or nerve-wracking experience, and you listen thoughtfully and with compassion, you have the skills to listen to your inner child. Try speaking to the child within and listening with an open mind. Be prepared for strong and possibly upsetting emotions to arise. You might find that when these emotions arise in your adulthood, they connect back to your early experiences. For example, if you find yourself getting angry at your partner for the tiniest things, then you might linking it back to when you were a child and no one paid attention to you, which made you feel angry. Have compassion for your inner child's suffering, fear, and shame, just as you would for any friend. Creating space for these feelings helps you to make sense of them and allows you to offer the validation your inner child needs to work through them. You might find that your inner child bears wounds not just from your life, but from several generations past. Be curious and ready to embrace these wounds in addition to your own. You should also never be afraid to feel sorry for yourself. Compassion alone has great healing power and soothes our difficult emotions. If you've ever felt like you weren't acknowledged or truly seen, you have the opportunity to heal that suffering by developing self-compassion. And in turn, expressing it toward the people around you. It will likely take consistency and time to access your inner child, which your hypnotherapist will be trained to help you with. You can also talk to your child for 10 minutes each day. While either you or your therapist is trying to find your inner child through the guided imagery sessions, don't be afraid to speak in child language and don't be surprised if that's what your therapist does. This will reassure your child, who has been kept hidden and silent for so long, that you are present and it's safe to emerge. The next best technique is to practice mindfulness meditation on a very regular basis. There are many ways to practice mindfulness. You can be still, you can move, you can be in a quiet, serene place, or you can be in the hustle and bustle of a busy grocery store. To begin a mindfulness meditation session, you should connect to your breath and find a regular and comfortable breathing pattern. Then slowly scan your body from head to fingertip to toe, or check in with all 5 of your senses, which are seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, and tasting. Mindfulness can boost your self-awareness and allow you to recognize your emotions as they arrive in your daily life. It also helps you manage and cope with your difficult feelings while allowing them to be expressed rather than pushing them down or fighting them. Engaging in creative activities is the next most powerful tool that can be used. Playfulness is essential for good emotional health. Take better care of yourself by connecting with your inner child through the things that you loved to do as a kid, particularly activities that engage your creative side. You might color, draw, explore nature, play a game, build something, or start a collection. Try to visualize your experience as a child. You can do this by sharing stories with your family or childhood friends, or even looking at photos, diaries, or art from when you were young. What you will find incredibly useful within this method is by engaging with children that you have yourself or are within your family or friends circle. There's no better way to engage your playful and creative side than engaging in activities with young children, or if you don't have access to any of that stuff, use your imagination. Or if you're lacking many positive childhood experiences to draw from, tap into your playful side and let your inner child have some light-hearted fun. It's never too late to do things just for fun as a child would and enjoy the small pleasures in life, like taking your first sip of coffee in the morning, walking barefoot in the grass, or laughing with your friends. This not only helps to heal your inner child but allows you to regain childhood feelings of wonder and optimism while living in the present moment. The next thing that you can do to reconnect with your inner child is to start writing in a secret journal that nobody else knows about. You can use this to talk with and ask questions of your younger self. Writing engages different parts of your brain than talking, which is part of why journaling is such a powerful tool. And through journaling, you can free yourself from the limitations of your current ways of thinking and have a private and open space for you to connect with your inner child. As you journal, explore how your inner child thinks and feels without editing or filtering anything. Think of it as a process of getting to know your child as they are. If you're stuck, try writing a letter to your inner child to offer reassurance and soothing. You can also free write about childhood memories and offer insight into situations that may have been hard for you to make sense of back then. You might ask your inner child any of the following questions. How do you feel? What do you need to feel safe and supported? How can I show up for you? Write from your inner child's perspective and see what comes up. It can be memories, feelings that you associate with early experiences, or anything else. Don't let your thoughts get in the way of your writing, but let your inner child's joy, fear, and pain all emerge. If you're nervous or hesitant, that makes complete sense. It can be scary to make room for your inner child's emotions, particularly when they've been buried for so long. Trust that they can do much more damage when they're repressed and unaddressed, and that you, as an adult, have the capacity to soothe and take care of your inner child. The last, but possibly the most important thing you need to do in order to have any chance of ever connecting with your inner child, is making sure that you're living a life and adapting a personality that was true to who you really were as a child. What I mean by this is that if you were the kind of kid who was naturally very kind, caring and loving, but now as an adult you are constantly portraying a lot of anger, fear, or aggression within your behavior towards of people or stressful situations, then you could possibly risk never being able to reconnect with your younger self. This is especially true if you grew up in a violent or abusive household when you were younger. You would have naturally grown up to be fearful of people that shout and use aggressive behavior. So if you're now portraying the behaviors as an adult that scared you when you were a small child, then how can you ever expect your inner child to feel safe and comfortable with reconnecting with you? The same rule applies if you were a very confident and brave child when you were younger, but now live a life where you are shy and never allow yourself to have your voice heard or defend yourself. Your inner child has the same instincts that every single child is born with, and they will naturally lean towards a primary caregiver who they see as providing their essential needs. And if one of your inner child's needs is to feel safe and secure and they do not see these qualities within the adult version of yourself, then it would be expected to be nearly impossible for you to establish a connection with your inner child. Everything that we've discussed today in relation to reconnecting and forming a good, safe, and strong connection with your inner child is exactly what's needed to recover from traumatic experiences you've had as a child. In order for you to utilize your younger self in terms of recovering, releasing, and moving on from past traumatic events, you must first make sure that you've reconnected and built a very strong bond with your inner child. This is because your inner child holds the key to help you both to finally move on from your trauma. The reason that your inner child plays such a significant role in recovering from your trauma is because they hold on to the most painful events and incidents that your mind has forced you to forget. This is known as repressed memories. A repressed memory will occur when a young child, or sometimes even a full-grown adult, experiences a traumatic event that a person's mind is not capable of processing at the time. This is much more common during childhood than adulthood because an adult's mind is able to acknowledge and process trauma with the faith that you can keep yourself safe. The other reason that this is much less likely to occur during adulthood is because you have a much wider understanding of the world and what the process is after witnessing or experiencing a traumatic event. But as young children, our minds don't always understand enough about life to fully comprehend what has happened to us. And as adults, if our mind can't process a traumatic event at the time, then we are likely to experience something called reality dissociation. This is where your mind will generate a false version of events either during or after the incident. Children, on the other hand, will experience something called a repressed memory. The concept of repressed memory originated with Sigmund Freud, whose understanding of human psychology focused heavily on the unconscious and subconscious mind. Freud developed the idea of repression during his work with psychoanalysis. Freud believed that repression was a defense mechanism in the face of traumatic experiences. These memories are stored in the unconscious mind and they are not readily accessible to conscious awareness, which means they will not present themselves after a certain time period. Repressed memories instead represent themselves in the form of triggers, flashbacks, and dreams. It is also common for people to talk about having a patchy memory or missing times of their life. This is why it is highly advised that you seek the help of a qualified professional before starting any kind of regression or inner child healing. Examples of repressed memories include an individual who may have undergone abuse as a child or was the victim of a crime. Oftentimes, letting repressed memories fester can give rise to mental illnesses like post-traumatic stress disorder. Once a secure bond has been established between yourself and your inner child, this is when your therapist will start using techniques such as regression, resolution, alteration, and reparenting therapy. These will all be used after you have been placed into a state of guided imagery hypnosis, and your therapist will encourage you and your inner child to take a trip down memory lane. And if done correctly, your inner child will lead you back to earlier stages of your childhood and will show you the events that you have experienced which has been repressed. The events will then be revealed to you by the unconscious mind. And depending on the memory that you are reliving decides what your therapist will do next. They might go down the route of resolution and adjustment therapy, which will involve your adult self intervening in the situation and essentially saving your younger self. You may also be encouraged to cause damage to the person who is causing the traumatic event or even damage their treasured property as a form of retaliation. Some therapists will encourage you to tell neighbors and people outside about what had happened. It is after this stage that your therapist will use a technique called reparenting. Reparenting, also called limited reparenting, refers to your psychotherapist taking the role of a concerned and trustworthy parent so that you can learn what a trusting relationship is like. It is based on the belief that many psychological issues stem from a child growing up without his or her needs being met. Reparenting is done by guiding you into giving your younger self either physical or verbal reassurance, love, and told what you needed to hear at the time of the event. This could involve a wide range of instructions from your therapist, such as hugging your inner child, telling them that they are loved and not to blame, confirming that what has happened was wrong. And some therapists will even suggest taking your child to a safe place where they remember feeling happy and safe. Just before we bring today's video to an end, it's important to mention that not every single person who has experienced trauma will have repressed memories that they cannot remember, but it is, however, very common, especially if you are unable to recall certain stages and times of your life. If you are consciously aware of all of your past events, then this exact same process can be used to revisit the traumatic things that you experienced as a child. You do not need to have repressed memories in order for this treatment to be successful. That's going to bring today's video to an end, but I hope you have all enjoyed watching it just as much as we enjoyed creating it. We're going to spend the rest of this month posting videos around child psychology and mental health, which we will continue next week by going into great detail of everything that you need to know about attachment theory. If you've enjoyed today's topic and are interested in learning about attachment theory, then please remember to hit the subscribe button if you are new, and hit the bell notification so that you don't miss out.